She laughed when I told her about the condo. Not a kind laugh, the type that starts in the throat and dies before it reaches the eyes. My daughter-in-law, Jessica, sitting across from me at the kitchen table in my own house, laughing at a decision I'd made about my own life. I kept my hands steady around my coffee cup, feeling the ceramic warm against my palms, watching the steam curl up between us like a question mark. "Mom, you didn't," my son Michael said, though he wasn't really asking. He was standing behind Jessica, one hand on her shoulder, the other gripping his phone like it might have answers I wasn't giving him. "Tell me you didn't actually buy a place without discussing it with us first." I'd lived in this house for 42 years, raised Michael here, buried my husband Richard from the funeral home 3 blocks down, planted every azalea in that front garden with my own hands, back when my knees didn't crack like dry wood every time I knelt down. I'd earned every right to make decisions about what came next, but apparently that wasn't how they saw it. "I signed the papers last Tuesday," I said, keeping my voice level. "It's a 2-bedroom condo in Riverside Commons, the new development near the waterfront. I move in 6 weeks." Michael's face went through about 5 different expressions before settling on something between disbelief and anger. He pulled out a chair and sat down hard. "That development. Those units start at $300,000. Where did you get that kind of money?" Where did I get it? As if 40 years of nursing, overtime shifts, and careful saving was somehow mysterious. As if Richard's life insurance and our retirement accounts had simply materialized out of thin air instead of decades of sacrifice and planning. "From my accounts," I said simply. "The money your father and I saved for my retirement." "Your retirement ended 3 years ago," Jessica cut in, leaning forward. Her perfume was too strong for a morning coffee visit. It made my nose itch. "You're 68 years old. You should be thinking about assisted living, not buying property." I set my cup down carefully. I'd been a nurse for 37 years. I'd held people's hands through their last breaths. I'd delivered news no family wants to hear. I'd cleaned wounds that would make most people faint, and I'd done it all with steady hands and a steadier voice. I could certainly handle my son's wife telling me I was too old to live my own life. "I am thinking about my living situation," I said. "That's exactly what I'm doing." "But this is crazy," Michael said, running his hand through his hair the way he did when he was 7 and couldn't explain why he'd broken something. "You can't maintain a whole condo by yourself. What about when you fall? What about your medications? What about—" "I take 3 pills a day," I interrupted. "My blood pressure medication, a vitamin D supplement, and a baby aspirin. I walk 2 miles every morning. I volunteer at the library twice a week. I'm not falling apart, Michael. Not yet," Jessica said. And there it was. The thing we'd been dancing around for months, ever since Richard died, and the house suddenly seemed too big and too empty, and my children started having very concerned conversations about my future that somehow never included me. They wanted me manageable. They wanted me in a nice facility where I'd be someone else's responsibility, where they could visit on Sundays and feel good about themselves without actually having to accommodate a whole separate human life with needs and desires and plans. "The condo has an elevator," I said. "It's in a secured building. There's a community room and a gym. It's perfect for what I need." "What you need," Michael repeated slowly, "is to be somewhere with medical staff. Someone who can check on you." I looked at my son. Really looked at him. Saw the gray starting at his temples, the lines around his eyes that hadn't been there 5 years ago. He was worried. I understood that, but his worry had curdled into something that felt a lot like control. "What I need," I said quietly, "is to be treated like an adult who's capable of making her own decisions." The kitchen went silent, except for the tick of the wall clock, the one shaped like a sunflower that Richard gave me for our 20th anniversary. Jessica's mouth had pressed into a thin line. Michael was staring at the table like he might find better words written in the wood grain. Finally, Jessica spoke. "Did you use the money from the house fund?" "The house fund. That's what they called it now. Not my savings, not the account Richard and I built together. The house fund, as if it was already theirs, just waiting for me to finish using it. I used my money, I said, from my accounts. The accounts were supposed to inherit, Jessica said. And there it was. Finally, the real concern, spoken out loud in my kitchen with the morning sun coming through the window I'd washed just last Thursday. I stood up slowly, not because I needed to, but because I wanted them to understand this next part very clearly. You're not supposed to inherit anything? Richard and I worked hard for what we have. We saved it for our retirement, for my retirement, not for an early inheritance. Michael stood too. Mom, that's not fair. We're not asking for the money now. We're just trying to make sure you don't waste it on something you don't need. Waste it. I let the words hang there. Living independently in a home I chose is wasting it. You could live with us, Michael said, though we all knew that was a lie. We'd had this conversation before. Their house was full, they'd said. The kids needed their space. Maybe in a few years when things were different. It was never really an offer, just something to say when they needed to sound caring. I don't want to live with you, I said. I want to live my own life. Jessica's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then at Michael. Some silent communication passed between them, the kind married people develop over years. She stood up, smoothed her skirt. We should go. But we're not done discussing this, Mom. There are legal options if you're not making sound decisions. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Legal options. They meant guardianship, competency evaluations, the kind of thing that happened to elderly people whose families decided they couldn't be trusted anymore. There's nothing to discuss, I said. The papers are signed, the deposit is paid, I move in 6 weeks. They left without saying goodbye. I heard Michael's car start in the driveway, the engine fading as they drove away. I sat back down at the kitchen table, my coffee gone cold, and felt something shift in my chest. Not sadness exactly. Something closer to resolve. The group text started that afternoon. I saw my phone light up on the counter while I was making lunch, messages coming in rapid succession. I didn't need to read them to know what they said. Michael and Jessica. Coordinating. Probably bringing in my daughter, Lauren, who lived in Colorado and called me twice a year, on my birthday and Christmas, like clockwork. I made my sandwich, turkey and Swiss on wheat, and ate it slowly at the table before I picked up the phone. The messages were exactly what I expected. Michael had started it. Mom bought a condo without telling anyone. We need to talk about this. Lauren's response. What? How much? Jessica. Over $300K from the inheritance accounts. Lauren again. That's our money. Our money. I set the phone down and finished my sandwich. That evening, Lauren called. I'd been expecting it. Mom, she said, her voice carefully controlled, the tone she used with her own teenage kids when she was trying not to yell. Michael told me what you did. I bought a condo, I said. I didn't rob a bank. You spent $300,000 without consulting your children. I spent my money, I corrected. The money your father and I saved. I'm 68, not 18. I don't need permission. It's not about permission. It's about making smart decisions. You're getting older, Mom. Things change. We need to make sure you're protected. Protected. That was the word they kept using. Protected from what? From living? From having desires? From making my own choices about my own future? I am making smart decisions, I said. I'm planning for my next chapter. Your next chapter should be somewhere safe, with care available, not in some fancy condo you can't maintain. Lauren, I was a nurse for 37 years. I think I understand my own health needs better than you do. There was a pause. Then, are you sure this isn't about Dad? Sometimes grief makes people do impulsive things. I closed my eyes, counted to 5. Your father died 3 years ago. I've had plenty of time to process my grief. This has nothing to do with him, except that he'd be proud of me for not settling into some quiet corner to wait to die. No one's asking you to wait to die, Mom. We're asking you to be reasonable. I am being reasonable. You're asking me to be convenient. She hung up on me. I set the phone on the coffee table and looked around my living room. The photos on the mantel. 42 years of life in frames. Michael's graduation. Lauren's wedding. Richard and me on our 25th anniversary, standing on a beach in Florida, both of us sunburned and grinning. We'd been so happy that trip. He'd told me then, sitting on the hotel balcony, watching the sunset, when I'm gone. Don't shrink yourself to make everyone else comfortable. Promise me. I'd promised. The Facebook post went up the next day. I didn't see it until my friend Margaret called me, her voice worried. Dorothy, honey, have you seen what Jessica posted? I hadn't. I barely used Facebook, mostly just looked at Margaret's garden photos and the occasional recipe someone shared. But I logged in, and there it was. Jessica's concerned, daughter-in-law voice translated into pixels and paragraphs, asking for prayers for my mother-in-law who's going through a difficult time. Sometimes our elderly parents make decisions that worry us, and we just have to trust that love and support will guide them through. Please keep Dorothy in your thoughts as we navigate this challenging situation as a family. The comments were full of sympathy. Prayers for your family. It's so hard when they get to this age. You're such a good daughter-in-law for being so patient. I stared at my phone for a long moment. Then I typed my own comment. I'm not going through a difficult time. I bought a condo. I'm moving to a beautiful new home that I chose and paid for myself. I'm fine, and I don't need prayers. But thank you for the concern. I posted it before I could second-guess myself. My phone rang 30 seconds later. Michael. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. Lauren. Voicemail. A text from Jessica. That was really inappropriate, Mom. We're trying to help you. I turned off my phone and went to the garden. The azaleas were blooming, pink and white and coral, the colors Richard had chosen when we first planted them. I knelt down, feeling my knees protest, and started pulling weeds. The soil was warm under my fingers, real, solid, mine. The intervention happened on Saturday. That's what they called it. An intervention, like I was an addict, like wanting to live independently at 68, was some kind of disease that needed treatment. They showed up together, Michael and Jessica, Lauren, who'd flown in from Colorado, even Jessica's mother, Patricia, who I'd met maybe 5 times in the 15 years they'd been married. They arranged themselves in my living room like a tribunal. We love you, Mom, Michael started, reading from notes on his phone. We're here because we care about you and want what's best for you. I sat in Richard's old armchair, the one with the worn patch on the right arm where he used to rest his elbow. I folded my hands in my lap and waited. Lauren spoke next. We've been talking, and we all agree that this condo purchase was made impulsively, without proper consideration of your long-term needs. I considered my needs for 6 months, I said. I toured 5 different developments. I spoke with my financial advisor. I reviewed my budget. What part of that seems impulsive? You didn't talk to us, Jessica said. That's the problem. We're your family. We should have been part of this decision. Why? The question seemed to throw them. They looked at each other, that silent communication happening again. Because we care about you, Michael said. Caring about me doesn't mean controlling me. Patricia, Jessica's mother, leaned forward. She was 72, perfectly coiffed, wearing a Street John knit suit to an intervention in my living room. Dorothy, dear, I hope you don't mind my saying this, but I've been where you are. When my Harold passed, I thought I wanted independence too, but eventually I realized that family knows best. I'm very happy in my facility. Your facility costs $8,000 a month, I said. And you've mentioned 3 times at various family dinners that you hate the food and miss having your own kitchen. Her smile froze. Michael jumped in. The point is, we want you safe. The condo, it's just not practical. What if you fall? What if you fall? I asked. You're 44. Should you move into assisted living too? That's not the same thing, Lauren said. Why not? Because you're 68. I stood up. My knees didn't even crack this time, maybe out of spite. I'm 68 years old. I walk 2 miles a day. I volunteer. I'm on no medications except basic maintenance. I have friends, hobbies, plans. The only thing I'm suffering from is an excess of children who think my age makes me incompetent. We didn't say incompetent, Michael said quickly. You flew your sister in from Colorado for an intervention about a real estate purchase I made with my own money. What else would you call it? The room went silent. I could hear the clock ticking, the refrigerator humming in the kitchen, the sound of Mrs. Chen's dog barking next door. Finally, Jessica spoke, and her voice had lost all its careful concern. That money was supposed to be for us, for the kids' college funds, for our future, and there it was again. The real issue, finally spoken clearly. No, I said quietly. That money was supposed to be for Richards and my retirement. Richard's gone, but I'm still here, and I'm going to use it to live the life I want to live. You're being selfish, Lauren said. I looked at my daughter. Her face was red, her hands clenched. She looked like she had when she was 16 and I'd said no to something she wanted. Entitled, angry, young, even though she was 41. Yes, I agreed. I'm being selfish. For the first time in my life, I'm putting what I want ahead of what everyone else wants from me. And I'm not going to apologize for it. Michael stood up. If you go through with this, if you spend all that money on this condo, there won't be anything left for us. There was never anything left for you, I said. This was never your money. It was mine and Richard's. He left it to me, not to you through me. To me, they left angry. All of them, even Patricia in her street. John's suit, looking at me like I'd committed some unforgivable sin. The door closed behind them, and I stood in my living room, shaking slightly, adrenaline making my hands tremble. I'd done it. I'd said it out loud. No, that night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Richard's side still empty after 3 years, and wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake. Not about the condo, I was sure about that, but about the family, about burning bridges I might not be able to rebuild. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, a text from a number I didn't recognize at first. Then I remembered Michael's oldest son, my grandson, Tyler. He was 20, away at college, studying engineering. Grandma, I heard about the condo. That sounds amazing. Can I see pictures? I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I got up, went to my laptop, and sent him the listing. Photos of the condo with its big windows, the kitchen with granite counters, the balcony overlooking the waterfront, my future, laid out in pixels. He responded immediately. This is so cool. You're going to love it there. Dad's being weird about it, isn't he? A bit, I typed back. He's always weird about money. I'm proud of you, Grandma. You should do what makes you happy. I sat there in the dark, reading his message over and over. Someone understood. Someone saw me as a person, not just an inheritance waiting to happen. The next morning, I called the bank. I needed to understand exactly where I stood, what I had, what I'd spent. The numbers were clear. After the condo purchase, I still had $400,000 in retirement accounts, plus Richard's pension, plus my Social Security. I wasn't destitute. I wasn't even struggling. I was comfortable, and I had enough to last me well into my 90s if I was careful. I also called my lawyer, Tom Henderson, who'd handled Richard's will. Tom, I need to ask you something. If my children tried to get guardianship over me, would they have a case? There was a pause. Dorothy, what's going on? I told him about the condo, the intervention, Jessica's thinly veiled threats about legal options. He was quiet for a moment. Then, you're of sound mind. You're physically healthy. You're making reasonable financial decisions with your own money. They'd have no case, but I can draw up some documentation if you want. Something that makes your mental competency clear on record. Do it, I said. I also updated my will that week, not to cut anyone out. That felt too spiteful, Too much like the kind of thing Jessica would do, but I made some changes. The bulk of my estate would still be split between Michael and Lauren, but I added a provision for Tyler, my grandson who'd sent me that message in the dark. $50,000 for being kind when kindness wasn't convenient. And I added something else, a letter, to be read when I was gone. To my children, I loved you from the moment you were born. I gave you everything I had, time, energy, opportunity. I worked overtime to pay for your college. I helped with your down payments. I babysat your children. I never asked for anything except respect. But in the end, you saw me as an asset to be managed, not a person to be loved. I hope you understand someday that inheritance isn't love and control isn't care. Your father knew this. I wish I'd learned it sooner. Live your lives fully, and let the people you love live theirs. With love always, Mom. The condo closing was on a Wednesday in May. Tyler drove up from school to help me move. Michael and Lauren didn't come, didn't call. The group text had gone silent after I'd posted my response on Facebook. I heard from Margaret that Jessica was telling people I was going through a mental health crisis, that the family was giving me space to work through things. Tyler carried boxes, assembled furniture, hung curtains. He was tall like Richard, had his grandfather's steady hands and quiet competence. While we worked, he talked about school, about his girlfriend, about his plans. He asked me about nursing, about my favorite memories from work. You miss it? He asked, taping up another box. Sometimes, I said, but I'm excited about what comes next. Like what? I'd been thinking about this. The condo building had a community room, programs, activities. I'm going to teach a first aid class, I said. For seniors, basic stuff. What to do if someone falls, how to recognize a stroke, CPR. I can still help people, just differently now. He grinned. That's perfect for you. That night, after Tyler left, I stood on my balcony watching the river. The water moved slowly, catching the last light of sunset. The air smelled like spring, like possibility. My phone buzzed, a text from Margaret. How's the new place? I took a picture of the view, the river, the sky, the beginning of my new life, and sent it to her. Perfect, I typed. Absolutely perfect. The months passed. Summer came, hot and bright. I took my morning walks along the waterfront path. I started the first aid class. 6 people showed up, then 10, then 15. I made friends in the building, people my age who understood that life didn't end at 68. It just changed shape. I heard nothing from Michael or Lauren for 3 months. Then, on a Tuesday in August, Michael called. Mom, he said, his voice careful. How are you? I'm well, I said. How are you? We're fine. The kids are good. Jessica's mother is in the hospital, actually. A fall. I felt a pang of genuine concern. I'm sorry to hear that. Is she all right? She will be. But it made us think. Made me think. He paused. I was wrong, Mom, about the condo, about all of it. You were right to do what you wanted. I sat down on my couch, my new couch that I'd chosen myself. Thank you for saying that. Can we come see you? See the new place? Of course, I said. You're always welcome. They came on Saturday. Michael, Jessica, and the 2 younger kids, my granddaughters Emma and Sophie. They walked through the condo slowly, taking in the open kitchen, the bright windows, the balcony with its river view. Mom, Michael said quietly, standing at the window. This is really nice. It is, I agreed. Jessica touched the granite countertop in the kitchen. I'm sorry, she said, not looking at me, for what I said, for what I posted. I was worried about the wrong things. What changed your mind? I asked. She finally looked up. My mother. After her fall, she said she wished she'd done more while she still could. Wished she'd lived somewhere she chose, not where we chose for her. I heard your voice in that. We had coffee on the balcony, watching the boats on the river. Emma and Sophie asked if they could come stay with me sometime, Have a sleepover in Grandma's cool new apartment. Anytime, I told them. There's always room for you here. After they left, I stood on the balcony alone, watching the sun set over the water. I thought about Richard, about his voice that day on the beach. Don't shrink yourself. I hadn't. And for the first time in 3 years, I felt like I was living again, not just existing, not just waiting. Tyler came for dinner the next weekend. I made his favorite pot roast with potatoes and carrots, the recipe I'd learned from my own mother 50 years ago. We ate on the balcony as the evening cooled. Dad came to visit, didn't he? Tyler asked. He did. With your mom and sisters. Good. Tyler speared a potato. He called me after. Said I'd been right, that he'd been an idiot. I smiled. He wasn't an idiot. He was scared. Fear makes people do strange things. You weren't scared. Oh, I was terrified, I said. But I was more afraid of not living than I was of them being angry at me. He thought about that for a moment. Can I ask you something, Grandma? Always. When you're my age, when you're old like me someday, how do you want me to treat you? I set down my fork and looked at my grandson, this good young man who understood something his father had taken months to learn, like a person who's still capable of making her own choices, like someone whose life still matters, even if it looks different than it used to, like someone worth listening to, not just managing. He nodded. I can do that. I know you can. That night, alone again in my beautiful new home, I thought about inheritance. Not money, but legacy. What we pass down isn't just in bank accounts and real estate. It's in the example we set, the boundaries we hold, the way we teach people to treat us. Michael and Lauren would get their inheritance eventually, but Tyler had already received something more valuable. He'd learned that love means respecting people's autonomy, that care isn't control, that aging doesn't mean ending. I'd taught him that, not through words, but through action, through standing firm, through choosing myself when everyone else wanted me to choose their convenience. I thought about the letter in my will, wondered if I'd ever need to change it. Maybe. Time would tell. For now, I had this moment, this life, this beautiful space I'd chosen for myself. The river outside my window moved steadily south, the way it had for thousands of years, the way it would for thousands more, constant, persistent, unstoppable, just like me.